So, I very recently asked you guys what kind of videos you'd like to see, if there's any topics you want me to talk about. One of the topics that was mentioned was how do you feel about Smite now compared to when you started? And I thought that was an interesting topic to address and just dig into the history of Smite for me personally a little bit. Though this is more of a laid-back topic where you sit back, relax and listen to the story of how I came into Smite and what I did and how it has developed for me and how I feel about it nowadays. I realized that I never talked about this topic as a whole, and it even takes some time for me to figure out how it all came together, so I think it's a very interesting one to spend a video on. So I started playing Smite on the 20th of April 2014, which is now over 3 years ago. I did play other games before that though. One game that I sunk a lot of hours in my youth into was World of Warcraft. I had roughly 200 to 250 days of World of Warcraft played before the Burning Crusade came out, so just in vanilla. So a hell of a lot of time, a lot more than I spend on Smite at the moment. After that I had some other games that I spent some time on, and then the one that got me hooked for the longest time was League of Legends. League of Legends was a game that when it came out was already familiar to me in its concept. I had played Dota before that, long before even World of Warcraft, in Warcraft 3 a fair bit at least. While I didn't start in the late beta or anything, I was around for, I think before Season 1 even, but at least Season 1. I got the Kaylee skin that you could get back then and all that kind of stuff. And I played for, I think, 3 to 4 years roughly. During the time of me playing League of Legends, I was rather busy though, as I was kinda in school still, had to finish that up, get decent grades at least. And then I was working for a year to save up for traveling afterwards, and then I traveled for almost 2 years and worked at the same time. So in that time, the actual time to be able to play games was very restricted. I didn't always have a PC with me, my laptop got stolen eventually. So a lot of stuff happened that kinda kept me from investing myself too much into League of Legends, while I did play and enjoy it a lot. I did play it even on the trip sometimes. I just went to internet cafes and played it a little bit, but never very excessively as, for example, it was the case with World of Warcraft or later on with Smite. I'm, to be honest, not exactly sure how I discovered Smite anymore. It may have been through an ad or something like that. It was definitely not through a video or anything alike, but I'm really not sure. It may have just been word of mouth, but I feel like I actually stumbled across it somewhere. Maybe I was just looking for another MOBA to play or anything like that, but I'm really not sure. What got me interested in the game was the third-person perspective. It kinda combined two of the games that I'd played a lot. World of Warcraft for its perspective and how you use your abilities, and League of Legends for the concept of the MOBA, or even Dota if we look further back. So there was a lot in this game that I already liked beforehand, and it kinda all came together, which made it very easy for me to get into it and very accessible, even though obviously there were a few things you have to relearn, as with every other MOBA as well. I was actually hoping that I would be able to find some footage from back then. Unfortunately, as it happens to be the case when you have small hard drives, there's nothing left of the videos from back then, aside of the ones that are already on YouTube. So when I started, Kumbhakana was released, or he was just released around that time at least, and I think the last god before that would have been Nemesis, or at least they were both around that time frame. When I started playing, I didn't actually intend to buy the God Pack, and I didn't buy it for quite a while, but when I started the launcher, I saw a video, I think at least it was in the launcher, or the Wisdom Tab or something like that, for Nemesis. I think it was actually Drybear playing Nemesis, or somebody else, someone out of the pro scene, and I really wanted to play Nemesis because I really liked the play style and design. Back then she was actually pretty broken still, even though she already had seen some nerfs. I played the starter gods until I had enough points to buy Nemesis, and I bought Nemesis. And I kept playing Nemesis for quite a while. She would become my first rank 10, which is why my win rate with Nemesis to this day is pretty atrocious. I just played it a lot while learning the game. Eventually, Nemesis got a little boring and I started playing Kali, played her a lot in Arena. If you look at my stats, you may be surprised to find that there's actually a decent amount of playtime in both Arena and Assault. That is because initially I did play that a lot more than Conquest. I was, like many others, kind of scared of Conquest and kind of didn't want to get too deep into that info. Even though I liked the idea of the mode, there was just too much surrounding it and I just played it occasionally and not that often. I did end up taking a little break in between as well, as I kind of went back to Borderlands 2, which I had played prior to that. I just enjoyed that game a lot and kind of played that for at least a few solid months with no Smite or very little Smite at all. This was because I was really excited to play Borderlands pre-sequel, so I wanted to kind of be in the mood for that already and in the mentality for that. I played pre-sequel, I actually made some videos on it back then, but I was overall very disappointed with it. It did not follow up on the standard that Borderlands 2 had set at all for me personally, so I quickly dropped it and I kind of came back to Smite. And that's when I really got hooked on Smite. This was late 2014, around the time when Awilix got released. At that point I had already played a decent amount of Bakasura as well, so I had my 3 main assassins down, but I really liked the hybrid concept of Awilix, and I even started her very early when she was pretty damn bad, to be honest, because her 3 was just goddamn awful. It was super slow and only knocked up from the back and not the side, so that was something else. Then Awilix got buffed, and I actually made a post about her back then saying how she would be much better with these buffs. Nobody really believed it back then, but she actually ended up being a lot better, and she kinda became my main. But not until Season 2 really kicked in. Because towards the end of Season 1, I also, like I said, played Bakasura a lot, and I actually ended up making a guide on how to play Bakasura to the level that you will be able to get Plat 5 in Duel. This was relevant back then because it was actually a very small player base in Ranked, and grinding Conquest, it was not the best option, so to speak, because, well, many people were just very unknowledgeable about the game, and just as today, it was much of a gamble if you would get up or not. Whereas in Duel, matches were much quicker and you obviously just relied on yourself. This was on the old Duel map, by the way, the old Joust map back then. So I made this guide and I actually had pretty solid stats on Bakasura. I played him a lot, which kinda got me into Bakasura for a while, and I really had fun playing him just because it went so well in Duel, and he was still pretty viable in solo in the beginning of Season 2. So I played a lot of Bakasura solo, abusing the then existent Hog, which would kill 3 minions in a wave and make him super strong early game and give him a lot of snowball potential, allowing him to easily push out enemies as well. And I also played Awilix in the jungle. And the longer the season went, the weaker Bakasura became, and the more I started mostly just playing Awilix. And I enjoyed playing her a lot. I really did main her at the time, and that's where it remained. And I, because of playing Awilix, was kind of forced into Conquest, as that's the mode where she just does the best. She just needs that jungle, and she needs the slow leveling with the early pressure, and she needs to have the room to engage from the side or the back in order to be fully effective. So I was kind of stuck with Conquest, and I enjoyed it. And that's where I kind of stayed, even when I didn't play Awilix that much anymore. To this day, I'm kind of focused on Conquest. And I was always a jungle player, no matter which game. This is not exclusive to Smite, so I kind of stuck with that for the most part as well. In the beginning, I was just playing Smite for fun. I was streaming it a little bit, and I was making YouTube videos, but those were just more on the side, just occasionally seeing if some people like the content and whatnot. And the main point was playing the game. Over time, with my channel growing, it became more of a job. And what comes with a job is naturally that even if it's something that's a passion of yours, it will sometimes be more of a grind because you're just forced to play something or do something based on that job in order to keep your income up, and that can be frustrating at times. If you asked me a month ago, or maybe even a few days ago, my opinion on this may have been completely different as it is now. My opinion on how I feel about Smite as a whole is basically constantly shifting. If I have a good day where I play with friends and it's fun, then I probably enjoy the game. If I have a bad day and I get matched with idiots, then I will enjoy the game a lot less, and that's basically what it boils down to. It just depends on how my games have been going and how I generally feel, if I have the motivation, the intrinsic motivation to play Smite, or if it's more like I have to play it right now in order to get the footage for the video done. So it can really depend. It always feels nicer to be ahead of schedule with my footage for the videos at least, so that I can play a little more of what I want and don't have that pressure in my back to get a specific footage on that certain day or something like that. What is a lot more enjoyable to me nowadays is balance. In the early years, Smite was not very balanced at all. I would still not say it's 100% balanced, but if you look back, Smite is a lot more balanced than it used to be. A lot more gods are viable overall, they are viable in different roles, there are niche items that gain more popularity, and even though we still have our cookie cutter builds and there's always going to be this most efficient options, a lot of flexible options around that do exist, and I'm very happy that we're going in that direction and have been going in that direction for quite a while now. Even God releases, maybe with the exception of Ardio, are not quite as terrible anymore as they used to be, even though sometimes you have questionable decision regarding the duration it takes until somebody's nerfed, think Cernunnos. But if we look back to the Dry Bear releases, nothing we see lately is quite as nightmarish as that, except Artio. Now obviously a lot of you are concerned about the whole Paladins being promoted a lot more and more prize money going into that and players being funded more and whatnot. I share this concern for the most part. I do think that that's something to remain skeptical about, especially considering Hi-Res past. At the same time, Hi-Res Ajax has recently stated on my stream that the biggest amount of people working in Hi-Res is still working on Smite, and the team's growing, as well as him saying that he will probably make a statement on the development, what's planned and so on in the near future for Smite. And I have relatively high expectations for the next season. I do think in many regards this season will be a make it or break it season, because the growth of Smite has been kind of stagnating, and I think the game still has more potential towards the top, but in order to reach that potential a few things have to change. Especially the jungle, especially the conquest map, especially the visual layout of how the game looks. It just looks outdated in many ways. Not just talking about the skins, but more like UI and kind of stuff. And a lot of that is being tackled and we know about it. I think the fact that this is something that's even considered is generally helpful and it's generally a good outlook, but at the end of the day, we don't know how well it will be executed, and Smite is still a game with a lot of spaghetti code that kind of is just left over from the old days that is probably very hard to fix. I personally would love to see an overhaul of Smite on the Unreal 4 engine, which would be really nice, and I think it would really help the game grow once again, but I doubt it will happen. Overall, I will say that I still very much enjoy Smite, though I do have the urge to try out more other games as well, which does not mean that I want to drop Smite at the same time, which is, I think, a very important point here. For a while, I just wanted to play Smite, now I want to play Smite, but I also want to do other things, just other kind of playstyles, just a shooter or whatever. Or I wish that some kind of RTS game could come back and just roll up the market. Just anything that kind of feels different from it, but not dropping Smite entirely at the same time. That concludes my experience with Smite over the years and how I feel about it back then compared to now. I hope this was interesting for you guys. If you're not subscribed yet, feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell, it really helps me out. Other than that, thank you very much for watching. See you for the next one tomorrow. Duke Sloth, out.